Hello, everyone. I'm Anna Sarkisian, and I would like to welcome everyone at the webinar series of Institute for Cultural Relations Policy. The main topic of the video lecture series is cultural relations as a tool of diplomacy in international relations. Video lectures aim to explore cultural relations as a soft power instrument in foreign policy and to initiate discussions on the role of culture in international relations. The lectures focus on various theoretical, practical aspects of cultural relations, including various actors, institutions, approaches, recent trends, and future prospects. Today, we will talk about the public art as a tool of international relations in the process of integration with José Antonio Villena Sierra, who is the expert in regional integration process, cultural affairs, and international law. So please, floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Anna. It's a pleasure for me to be in this panel, in this lecture, and especially talking about the international relations that we can analyze and we can also support, giving a perspective for the future networks and fields of work, common work that we can have between continents. And one of that is not only processes of integration, also that we have culture. It's very interesting if you think that maybe our topics, usually people who are talking about economy do not talk about art or vice versa. But in this case, it's very important to focus that culture is one part of our daily life that sadly has been forgotten in different countries for the crisis that we have or for other needs that we can focus. However, we have to focus that the highest development of culture, talking about this culture, the meaning of culture, of the traditions and customs and daily characteristics and features of each country. However, a part of that, which is considered international field as culture, which are the manifestation, spiritual manifestation, creative manifestations that can involve the whole community. That's what we are going to focus today. When we talk about culture, we have as long as we have remains of human life, we have manifestations of spiritual and soul manifestations of art, of creation, of religion, of traditions manifested in visual arts that are maybe the remains that we have until today. Later, we develop writing systems, and of course, the language, the traditions that we can have between generations are the evidences that we keep. Sadly, it's something ethereal that we cannot literally manifestate or traduce into people interested in these fields, as much as we talk about ancient life, ancient history, ancient life, prehistory. But as much as we have the idea of states, nations, culture, which is a concept developed during the medieval times and Renaissance, we have manifestations also of art that we keep at least in a chain of manifestations in the Western world. Of course, in other sides of the world that happen as well. However, we keep the influences of culture and the influences of those processes of integration in many processes of the Western world. Maybe since we have the idea of empires and states, we have the Marco Polo travels and discoveries, let's say discoveries, what was only a way to visit other places and to bring interesting traditional manifestations of other regions to the empire or the nations that were supporting the travels of Marco Polo. Marco Polo was one of different travelers that were with the idea to discover other lands, but also to have always the idea of economy inside. They had the support of empires. Why I'm telling you this description? Maybe people involved in history will kill me with the description of Marco Polo. But the important part of economy, it's also what supported the important and the relevant manifestations of culture that we discover or can find in other parts of the world. I don't know if you can share one of the paintings that I gave you kindly, and if you can project. It is very interesting. How can I explain this part of what I'm trying to explain that can maybe sound very difficult to understand? But we have here a picture of the first, let's say, trade agreement between two continents that is literally presented here. This is the first visit from Christopher Columbus to the Kingdom of Spain, to the Queen Isabella Católica, where well, people who are not really close to this, to those details, is the Kingdom of Spain supported the trip of one traveler, Christopher Columbus, who said that the economic way from Europe, what was called Iberia in that moment, from them to the Indias, which is China, India, and what is considered Far Asia now, can have in the other way another trip that can demonstrate that the world is circular, the shape of Earth, of our planet circular, and you can arrive to other. This is very interesting because it includes economy, history, arts, and personal benefits, religion, and the power to conquer other places. This is the first manifestation of what the European side brought from the Americas. And then you have, this is of course, the manifestation can be the strong and ugly for many people manifestation of what one empire presents to their kingdom. But this is indeed, these are mosaics elaborated that you can find in Barcelona, in the Plaza Catalunya, and you can find the people from Europe standing with their costumes. You have the religion, you have nobles, you have soldiers, and you have the king and the queen. You have the traveler who is in the center, and you have the indigenous citizens that were that came from the Americas with the most important thing that are their products. Maybe here focus the idea of slaves or prisoners or people submitted to the strong power of an empire. But in their hands, they have many products that until today, this is the very interesting part, the same products that they have in their hands are the main products of exporting and commerce until today between the Americas and Europe. Of course, those are the products taken from the Americas and given to Europe, because of course, vice versa, conquering and all the process of well, let's say human relations have two sides. So there were indeed products taken from Europe and given to the Americas, or taken from Africa or Asia to Europe and by Europe to the Americas. Very interesting. What they are exporting? You can find tropical fruits, many tropical fruits, as pineapple, papaya, you can have, but you can have cocoa for the chocolate. You have tomato, pomodoro for the Italians. Yes, we're not existing. And of course, the most important and relevant products that were taken from America to Europe, which are corn and potato. Corn and potato, especially potato, in a sense, rescue Europe and the old world from the starving ages and from hunger that was killing. Poverty was, and hunger was covering all Europe, and that solved. Interesting. And let's say if we want to explain this to under the standards of economy or the processes of integration, we can say that we have a trade, not say agreement, but a trade relation between two continents with the most important products that solve national problems, which is the people that are standing there willing to have that support that those contributions, let's say in current words, with the enthusiasm to solve their needs and to solve their problems. And you have the cultural manifestations. Clearly, you have the people living in the Americas and the people living in Europe. But in Europe is even more interesting that each person, each five people have a different dressing code, which shows how were the levels of the society, high society, middle classes, poor societies, religion, the kingdom. In Europe and in the Americas was more or less the same conditions. Of course, they had monarchies and they had classes, but them all were having the idea of property was common, and the products were there to share and not only for the rich in that moment. Of course, classes as human being exists, there are differences, sadly. But this manifestation started with the idea of how can you contribute, because also in art, this is a public art example that shows your daily life, and oops, the first communication between two continents. If you can, Anita, show me the second image. This is the same perspective, but from a different school. It's not a wall. This is a personal property of the monarchy. It's the same manifestation. This was previous. This can give you an idea. Talking about culture and the manifestation. You go in the previous as well, in the picture, in the painting. Yeah, this is what the most important painters of the moment gave to the kingdom. And the kingdom wisely said, this painting that is for me, that express the moment of the power of my advisors, the religion in their left, philosophers in their right, well, in our right, and in front of them, the people coming from the Americas, the traveler and the conqueror, the payment that he's receiving, the name of the church. It is very beautiful, because if you find the architecture of the building comes from the northern part of Africa, from Maghreb. It's not Spanish 100%. Architecture coming from the Maghreb, probably from Morocco, and you have the paintings behind that are also represented there are coming from Asia. The products in the floor are from the Americas, and this created a new world, this situation. So this painting that was in their personal belongings, the kingdom said, we have to show this in public art, because we have to keep the public art was the communication, was the media of today, the social network that we have today was between arts, especially in this case, fine arts and plastic arts. So we can go to the next slide if you want. Yeah, we are, this is, I simply cannot express all what is represented here. This belongs to the 20th century. This is a painting of Diego Rivera. During Cold War, other important part of history, Cold War, when there was a conflict between communism and socialism with capitalism and liberalism. The expression, the maximum expression, as we can say, as we can find in the paintings of Spain and the discoverment of America, that was the Kingdom of Spain. Here we have the kingdom of the Ford Company. Ford Company was the expression that moment with 2 or 3, like with a bank that was Mr. Rothschild's bank, that were like 5 or 6 enterprises that were conquering not only the American market, was conquering the whole world, at least in the liberal side of, well, expression of economy. And it's manifested how the workers are working there to produce that empire. This painting was a scandal, was done by Diego Rivera, a wonderful and magnificent painter, muralist, modern painter, muralist from Mexico. For people who are interested, he was like the couple of Frida Kahlo, and he influenced so much in that movement. In that moment was maybe the most important expression of public art. Most part of the art with the idea of socialism and communism started developing Latin America, and it's wonderful, wonderful, wonderful to find in Eastern Europe the same manifestations after Mexico that started. If you visit any of the countries that during the 50s, 60s, and 70s were under that regime of socialism and communism, you can have beautiful paintings, mosaics, for in the most important plazas. Of course, you can find in other places, but this was given by an order by the hand of the government. So this was, in this case, it's different because are not between governments, it's between cultural perspectives of common people. Of course, Diego Rivera was supporting socialism, but he was painting for the most interesting and important enterprise that was Ford, created by Henry Ford, and they directly contracted this painter to manifestate the power of this integration of systems of economic development and how the workers are there, but that they also belong to an union of production, which as much as we work, we will produce, and we all will be, that's the upper part of the painting, shows some icons that represent the progress and development. If you see where the people are a lot of workers working with machines, even everything, and for many teachers as Gombrich, they focus that maybe Diego Rivera was willing to or not, trying to manifestate the same idea of the slaves are there presented in the power of the empire. These are the first relations between two economic systems. The first paintings were the first communication between two continents and societies. Here now we have two economic systems represented more or less in the same way. We can project the next one, if you are so kind. These are the Ford fields. So it's very difficult, very different. If we show the power of Ford, if we show how the picture is, as can be, yes, we can take a picture of the empire, of the governments, or the armies. It's difficult to get into the societies. That's the reason I selected this picture, because this was the first idea that Ford had to present to the people. They said to their advisors, we are going to show our huge fields and our huge factories and the power of how we are producing 24/7. But the idea was no, people is not going to be represented or have that connection as we have with arts. So now in this moment, we can show how important is for wise government, Machiavellian or with the most noble goals, to show art and to show their ideology, their power, their goals, their objectives in art. If you want to, if the society is important for you, how can you communicate? Until this time, we had just fine arts or arts, music and literature to capture the idea. Most part of in the Renaissance, most part of the creations were given by the monarchies to artists to traduce and communicate to people. In this case, we already had filmmaking and TV, but the strong part of other arts were until that moment stronger to show what they want to express. If we want to go to the next slide. Sorry that I was speaking French the whole day, so now I'm maybe going slowly when I express you in English. I beg your pardon. This is the entrance to the Ford enterprise. So if you are the owner or if you are someone who is going to make a contract there, you just enter to that building, and of course it's a beautiful building. It's huge, a huge entrance, bigger than a hotel, a five-star hotel, and you have more beautiful murals than a museum. But this is the idea. The objective is the door, and around the power, or before you enter to the power, you have at your left and at your right art. Maybe you are interested, maybe you are not interested, but during that period is it was very clever to show people that art is also a way to communicate. At the beginning, the murals were only in this part, in indoors, let's say, and then art came outdoors. Until the same, this strategy of Ford was copy-paste, to use some words from today, by other enterprises. So this is a very interesting and creative. Rockefeller Center and Ford enterprises were the first publicly giving murals to the society to express their power. They don't have political power, they have economy behind. We can go to the wow. This is a model, this is a mosaic that I contributed with. This is my part. It's a very big mosaic that we did in Colombia, in the city of Cali. During those days, Colombia was considered, sadly, one of the most dangerous countries on earth. And this mural is a part of, I guess that these are like 12, no, 15 meters by 3 of, of tall, no, it's more, even 4 meters tall, and the long part of my part is 15 meters. This is a mosaic that was, have a double in the wall, have one vision to the city, to people getting out from a jail, for prisoners, and there another mural, exactly the same indoors for the most dangerous criminals that were there. As you know, in Colombia, during the 90s, narcotraffic was covering, sadly, um, all the politics and economy of the country, so it was shaking with social disadvantages. So what I'm putting this, because this made me feel that maybe we have many critics of arts, and maybe we have a government, of course, the Minister of Culture is not important as the one of economy, sadly, or military affairs, or defense, intelligence, or let's say international trade or commerce. But indeed, people is very important. You cannot imagine how it was accepted for the people. I'm not saying it's proper of a film, that usually all the people helping us were the relatives of the prisoners inside, the policeman taking care about us, and then all the criminals, or the, let's say, the gang that were not in prison, were coming to protect us because we were giving people something there. It's a mural that until now, if you want to visit, is in the city of Cali, in the jail of Pueblo Nuevo, and the title of this is We All Are Pueblo Nuevo, and includes some, I took as models the people that were working and walking around there. This showed me, after many years that I was doing arts for museums and for private exhibitions, how important is public art. And then I connected with some festivals that are held in Slovakia, in Argentina, in Mexico, that express how important is art as a way of communication. We were talking about those paintings between Americas and Europe. In the most traded, visited or used airport, which is Barajas Airport of Spain, of Madrid, Spain, Adolfo Suarez Airport, this is a mural. You have one part, the upper part, you come when you are traveling from the Americas to Europe, and the lower part is when you are, is the picture, well, the paintings when you are traveling from Europe to the Americas. Fantastic for me. You have some contributions that we were saying from Europe. Can you imagine horses and bulls and cows? This means milk and cheese and other production were not existing in the Americas. There's in the corner, there's one person with a guitar, and there's and in the center, well, those faces in black and white are relevant writers that you have from Europe brought the language. So we have here the production, the hands and the people there is the mixture between between ethnics, mestizaje, so indigenous with Caucasian and Iberian, with including people from the northern part of Africa, with black people from Africa coming to the Americas, and have this mixture of magic and cosmic ethnics. So we have animals there, as with the icon, bullfights that is an icon of religion as well. Some festivals, we have the horse conquering, but with arts, and you have also guitar player, which is music, and the contribution that is maybe the most important thing that you can contribute as writers to other side of the world. In the other hand, you have the musician, which is a mother in the lower level painting in your left. You can have this interesting instrumental music from the Andes, which is called rondador, that is created with some roots and plants from, well, let's say parts of the trees, the that are used to create some musical instruments. By the way, guitar, remember that the guitar was not created in Europe, no? As wine is not created in Spain, Italy. You know, Anita, where maybe is the most important contribution of wine, which comes from, I'm very glad to say that it's from Georgia. The word from Georgia included in all the languages, the word wine, vino, vinus, and other, some vinho in Portuguese. So the images that we have in the lower level mural, we have the architecture that was coming from Americas, but that put churches, and this means the spread of the culture, Western culture in the Americas, and then writers from Latin America that went to, or heroes like Simon Bolivar, I can recognize him, or Pablo Neruda, the writer, the Nobel Prize, that went to America bringing the cultures. Fantastic. Also, you have expressions of the religion and manifestations of the ancient cultures of the America, or again, the mixture between Europe and America, we're talking about ethnics. And it's very interesting what is written there. The first, well, when you find that part of more or less light blue, they say, y entre los muros blancos juntaron las sangres. They said, between the architecture and the walls, exactly the literal word is the, between the walls, the white walls, means from people coming from Europe, the bloods mixed. And in the other say, and dice, y les faltará cordel para atarnos. Talking when now we focus that between cultures can happen, that can have violence, or the power of one empire over other, over a society or a culture. They said you won't find enough strength to stop us, will be literally what is written there, what they want to say. So it's magic, all good and bad, and what is contributions, that's mixture and relations between cultures that we can express as integration process. Sometimes can be under the power of a sword or guns, but also within culture, we can also have process of integration as much as we can satisfy our more important needs. Let's go to the next, Anita, please. This is the one, the part that I was showing, you know, it's exactly, so we have the mixture of cultures, the writers from the Americas, mixed, the writers from Europe, sorry, with Cervantes and Lope de Vega, the bullfights that were coming, animals that were not existing on the other side, and the expression also of conquering, but you can find the figure over the horse, that is the manifestation of arts. Wow, now we go to the second chapter of this lecture. This is the Virgin, Madonna, Maria, according to the country, and it has the kid. But as much as you skip the face of the Virgin, you have a mountain there. That triangle is a mountain. Why? Because in the Americas, most part of the cultures were adoring two things. The most important, the sun, which is represented clearly by gold over the head as aurea. As aurea, there is the sun. As if you, and there, that's the contribution of the Americas to Europe in the sense of Christian religions. The place where you live the body of Christ have the shape of the sun. And then you insert Jesus Christ. And most part of the Andean countries, this means from the South America, more or less Jesuitic missions discovered that the sun was a male god and the goddess were the mountains and all the phenomena that come from the mountains. Yeah, because the mountains, of course, until then, sorry, in Europe, there were no giant mountains that we have in the Americas. Then we discovered the Himalayas. Of course, they were, but then discovered that more or less from the center of the world, Chimborazo mountain was the highest mountain on earth. If you don't measure from the sea level, if you measure from the center of the world, the highest mountain on earth is Chimborazo, which is this volcano. And you can find, because the cultures were adoring not only the mountain, as stupidly some writers pretend to show. No, they were adoring nature, which is different. It's not the mountain, it's not the sun, it's nature, because we belong to nature. Not humans are the owners of nature. No, nature doesn't belong to us. We belong as a different, as one more of the species in this world, we belong to nature. So they were adoring the mountain, which was more or less the idea of female goddess. Well, a goddess, female vision, female sacred manifestation. So when the religion, the Catholic specific religion, started to spread Catholicism and Christianism, the indigenous society were adoring in a certain moment Jesus Christ, the Mother of God, Maria or Madonna, the sun, the mountain, and some animals. So we were even more polytheist. So the syncretism, which is the word in arts, the fusion of these ideas, placed the mountain, which was, let's say, female, with the face of the Madonna, with the kid, under the sun. So the mountain was adored already. So we fusionate also adoration, which is very interesting, is that in Europe, the most important manifestation of religion was Jesus Christ or God. Yeah, the trilogy of, but it was Jesus Christ or God. But in the Americas, especially in the Andes places, not in all the Americas also, I don't want to tell you things that are not true. In the region and where they created, which is between Ecuador and Peru and parts of Colombia, they discovered that the leader of the societies was not the man, was woman. In many places where, as much in the world we have kings, they have queen. And the process of princess was even more for fertility, and because only the mother knows who's going to be the child and the successor. So it's evident some things that are so basic to understand for someone. If someone from Mars come, will understand this, but we stupidly, we think, no, we male, we are the owners, and the last name for me comes on my religion. No, no. Mother was the leader, and here comes a very interesting thing as well, because they represented the mother. And if you find the skin of her, this was a long process. Of course, the first virgins were totally white. These have a bit tanned level of art. No, it's very interesting. Why? Because they understood that it was easier for them to conquer with communication and to spread the religion and the power of Europe over the Americas if the teacher or who was spreading was a woman, because the mother, everybody in that zone was respecting more for education to the word and the hand of female teachers than a male. So it's very interesting. But it was also, firstly, the skin was white, then step by step, of course, this is one of the darkest ones. You cannot find another. Later, there are even black, and in Salvador de Bahia in Brazil. But it's the idea of how art is a communication to people equal as you, daily life. It's not for museums and for rich people. No, no, no. Public art to spread. If you really want to communicate something, you have to talk the same vocabulary, which in this case is art. Also, the first representations, well, most part of the representations of the Virgin were not having long hair, because long hair was for prostitutes in Europe. Only Magdalena had the long hair represented in painting because she was, a prostitute. But in the Americas, most part of the mothers had long hair. So they started representing, and the religion said, no, my God, how can you present this virgin, and you put it with long hair? No, impossible. So then they said, negotiating, they said, okay, we are going to put a bit curly hair as the Spanish people. And Spanish roots, I have curly hair. Yeah, it's because straight hair as the indigenous was forbidden in that moment. Some ideas of politics involved in arts. We can go to the next part. This is one of the first representations that we're given for printing processes, because we inserted in the first books, because at the beginning, not only the people conquered, also the conquerors had no idea, were analphabet, no idea to write or to read. The conquerors were important magicians, but they had no idea how to read. Only noble people were allowed to. And this is a representation of how they wanted to have in all the altars of the churches. Of course, everything covered by gold, that then indeed was full of, in the Americas, of gold and silver. And again, we have the representation of the mountain and the sun. We more or less cannot find the face of the mother and the kid. We just can have a mountain and the altar in the center, and with the sun radiating and show bright and shining over the mountain. Now we go with a contribution with Africa's processes of integration. When Mercosur, the process of integration of South America, discovered that one of the most, that was not between countries, was also between cultures, Caetano Veloso. I do recommend this artist for you. Listen, Caetano Veloso in Bossa Nova and Brazilian traditional music, with a symphonic orchestra of Europe first, and then from Brazil, had this concert with a mural behind them, because they were celebrating the fusion of the cultures in after 500 years of the coming of Europe to America, but also he made a focus of Eastern Europe, Northern Africa, Dark Africa, and Asia, Far Asia, that also came to have this fusion. It said it's the most important moment to make a festival to recognize not only the fusion between two cultures, as books say, no, many contributions. The instruments were coming from Eastern Europe, Russia, and many from Asia, and they more or less played with a mural behind of relevant artists. This one is also from the Mexican art. It's not Diego Rivera, but it's David Alfaro Siqueiros. Also Diego Rivera one part, but also they include Siqueiros and Portineri, that is from Brazil, Guayasamín, that you saw something from Ecuador, and some other relevant painters. Fantastic. We definitely have to make a moment to breathe and to watch what is art and the contribution between cultures to the societies. Of course, economy is important, but if we don't think, as nature doesn't belong to us, that economy is not the most important thing, we have to think that the most important thing, if we find as humans, is human or nature, all shaping living, well, all the living shapes in the world. So we can continue, Anita, if we, okay. Well, this is a narcissist painting image that I put because it was a festival that I was working with, that is in La Plata in Argentina, where many murals, paintings were spread to include this my part that I was doing a homage to Slavic cultures coming to Americas. So it's not only when you say Spain or America, no, we have many cultures, many contributions. And in one idea of this is for example, from the old world and came to the Americas, coffee, banana, and the most important producers of coffee are Brazil and Colombia, which are not from Africa. Well, Ethiopia, of course. People from Ethiopia, my apologies if you are listening and you don't say, no, Ethiopia is fantastic. Also from Guatemala, but interestingly, and the most important producers of bananas are Costa Rica, Ecuador first, and Costa Rica. Very interesting. A product also coming from Guinea, Equatorial Guinea. Now, the most important producers are in the Americas, but also the most important producer of cocoa seeds is Cote d'Ivoire in Africa, and Sao Tome has also very important, and is a product that doesn't come. And what happens with Georgian wine? I will ask this to Anita. Also in Armenia, they have wonderful. I remember they had a production of cognac and well, brandy cognac that are in the. It's not proper. We are talking about geographical indications because cognac is from France, but the production of the similar spirit in Georgia is fantastic. In Armenia, sorry, I totally recommend you as Georgian wine. So I'm open to your questions. I hope I was not spending too much time.
Mhm. Oh.
Well, as much as you this, there's one. Now I want to contribute as a lawyer. As I was telling you, nobody's perfect. I'm also a lawyer, and I have to make a big difference. Integration is not cooperation. Cooperation are agreements, small events, small pictures between presidents that we can say. Integration for the Europeans citizens that are listening to this, maybe you can understand better because you are leading maybe the unique. Let me move here because I have the sun in my eyes. As you can find, you're in your night and still with sun here. So yeah, the process of integration in other parts of the world different to Europe, it's very difficult to understand what is integration. Integration is giving competences and power that only the states have. Maybe in the European Union, you can understand a bit, but in other parts of the world, this is maybe you are doing integration if you do a festival between 2 or 3 countries, or you make a picture between leaders of the, no. We have to understand that a way of life is integration. That's interesting part of a process of integration. Of course, all the panel that the lecture that I was giving today is 1% of what we can talk, or maybe less, if we talk about filming and books and writing. But I just want to say what is public. We can have arts indoors, and we have public art, and that's the manifestation that we have to talk the same language with the viewer, not developing art, because there are indeed art for the museums that are in public. Maybe the museum can be a public window, but the language is so developed. I know it's my art, or it's very developed, and I have the origin of this. No. The public art, it has to be very easy to be understandable, as we have in the plazas of the Americas, as we have in the plazas of the Caucasian region, we have in Russia, or we have as when the religion accepted to represent the mother of Christ with a different color than the European, and the hair curly and long and free, different. We have to adapt our communication to the viewer, to the person who is, because as politics, this is politics, and this is to politicians. If you give your speeches, not populist, but also very developed, technical, maybe the common person is not going to understand you. So that's the idea also of public art. We have to adapt in a language, visual, or in music, or narrative, because the communication is between two, that the viewer or the person in the streets can understand, for the process of integration. Even more. Why more? Because the process of integration requires two things more than above everything: tolerance and respect. Even the painting, in the music, we don't put skills or features of tolerance and religion, tolerance and respect. We are not going to obtain a fair objective of a process of integration between cultures. Anita,
Thank you very much. So I'm back now, my microphone works. And thank you, first of all, very much for this very interesting angle to present how this trade and bilateral relations started from the perspectives of the culture expressed by the paintings. It was very interesting and very different approach. I would like to ask the following question. Has there been any previous art projects with the aim of enhancing cultural relations? If yes, what kind of projects?
Actually, in all the process of integration, we have to give and receive. And UNESCO is where we are pushing for it, but already they declared open the idea to make public art representations, as much as you can also give the support of geographical indications that I was talking with you, Anita, and to the people listening, that are the pride products of each nation or region, like wine, or let's say we were talking cognac, or fine aroma cocoa, or high standard cafe, or there can be an opportunity to show something that contribute from one region to other, or that can fusionate neighbor countries, because maybe what the festival is also fusionated with food, because the most globalized and tolerant and respected mixture of cultures is food. You can have garlic coming from Middle East, and you have I don't know, we can have pork from Europe, and potatoes from the Americas with tomato, and we can have parts of coffee in high standard cuisine. So I want to invite to everyone. There's a festival that we are going to develop in the following 4 or 5 years with the Andean Parliament, which is 5 member states: Chile, Colombia, Ecuador, Peru, and Bolivia, that want to place for the first chapter of this festival. for public art, and will be open for everyone. If you don't have to be a very recognized artist to participate. The idea is to present your idea. What are you going to contribute? As we want to contribute between regions, you have to show what you want to give, and your art, of course, we will find a way to compensate economically to this work, or nothing should be for free in this case. And also, let me tell you, also is one of UNESCO and another one from the Andean Parliament, and there's another one that maybe the most important one that is going to be held, hopefully, if this pandemic ends, well, is controlled in October by the United Nations Food and Agriculture Organization, that again will have as epicenter food and the mixture of cultures with food, but also fighting against hunger. So how can we contribute to corners of the world that are starving, that are having hunger problems, especially after this pandemic? As you know, is the second pandemic. The hunger that we are going to suffer is not even starting. And how can we move the societies is by art. Is by art. But these ideas, if you want to share, I will give all the information to you, Anna, so you can give all these ideas. Working, who are the actors, the protagonists? States, chambers of commerce, United Nations with Food and Agriculture Organization, and of course, the language will be art.
Great, and thank you. And my second and last question for today will be, we can say that the public art has always existed, but has it always been used as a tool for international relations, or it is a new phenomenon? From the presentation and from the pictures I saw, it was kind of message from under the art. What can you say about that nowadays?
Well, public art is like a language communication. So it can be used by anyone in any point with the perspective that you want to give. The important thing is that as we have public speeches and international relations, finally, we are using art for international relations and processes, but in this case, in a different way as we were having in the Renaissance, because in the Renaissance, it was used indeed for processes of integration, but showing the strong power that one empire have above pressuring over other culture. In this case, is vice versa. We want to show that the freedom that we have finally, that we can have tolerance. We need tolerance and respect. It's very difficult because why is difficult than before? Because we have more, like pandemia, we have more relations between countries. We have travels, flights, events, international events, languages. We are speaking, our languages are not English, and we're speaking in English, and we are talking about invention of other region about IT. But what we need is tolerance and respect, because as much as we travel, as much as we share, there are always social illnesses of the pandemic that can be spread very scarily, focusing in hate. And that's what we are preventing. This festival is to show, like to protect humanity against hunger and against hate, because maybe are the two strongest consequences that are going to come. That's the reason why this is easier for us to make a festival with the mayor of the city or the owner of this gallery or this museum and put it online. No, we need to show this in the streets. We need to show this in daily life. That's where the reason why we are giving those examples. So that's the reason for your the answer. Sorry for the question that you were giving to me, Anita. Of course, as a language, public art was used all the time. I cannot lie. But now is a language that we want to use. As we are using English to communicate between us, art will be maybe the reason, because with this economic crisis, it's very difficult to common people to go to festivals, to pay, maybe for health, we cannot go to festivals, massive events, so we can have it in the streets. It's a very relevant opportunity that we are having, and it's mandatory to show tolerance and respect toward the different, toward minorities, toward people in vulnerable conditions.
Yes, culture and tolerance and acceptance of each other and differences of each other, I think, can help to understand each other better and to live in the better world. I want to thank you for dedicated time and the added value from the name of the Institute for Cultural Relations Policy, and I hope that this was first, but not the last cooperation of ours.